Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur, and let's talk about something serious. This is actually a common problem that's been going on for a long time, that's been picking up some media attention recently, and so yeah, we need to address it. And while the video is titled for Uber, by the way, you should not do this for Lyft as well. And that is twofold. One, you should never, ever, ever use Uber or Lyft as an ambulance replacement. And drivers, you should never, ever, ever take someone who is going to the hospital under very painful circumstances. Now then, why is this the case? Because here's the thing. Why is this even a growing thing? Well, it's pretty obvious. Ambulances are expensive. Some people say unjustifiably so. I'm not here to debate that, although I definitely am leaning in everyone's court. I had to take an ambulance one time that I did not want to take. I was actually forced to take it by my company, a former employer. And then when I got saddled with the bill, it was like, I didn't even want this thing, and you're charging me. And it was a couple $1,000s. So I understand that ambulances are very, very expensive, and the costs need to be reined in for non-emergency uses. That said, the problem isn't that when people use Uber to go to the doctors for non-emergency uses, like a doctor's appointment or to pick up medication. The problem comes when they are bleeding, or they're having a heart attack, or they're having other serious health problems that, the Uber driver just should not be compensated for. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I know that it's a lot of money, but sometimes your life is just a little bit more important than money. I mean, as much as it could definitely hurt financially, I sometimes think it'd be worth struggling with the payments for a little while rather than dying. But then some people are like, well, but I would rather not struggle with the payments and live. But passengers, I'll address you first. Here's the problem. If you are bleeding, or you have a heart attack, or you're having chest pains, or, like the world is spinning because of something. If you are having some serious ailments where you feel sick enough that you need to go to the hospital and you need to seek medical care, the problem is sometimes it takes a little bit longer. If you're on the way and you don't have a doctor with you to help you, then something could go seriously, seriously wrong. And without that medical professional there, then saving the money is not going to matter, because you could potentially die or get worse. Take, for example, if you are having a stroke. Your Uber driver will get you there for a cheap price, but, not having the doctors working on you on the way could be the difference between you permanently losing the use of half your body and maybe just feeling some numbness for a few months. That's a huge difference. As for Uber drivers and drivers, I'm sorry. You need to also not take these people. If they say they're going to a hospital, you have to reject them. You have to reject them unless it's just a doctor's appointment. Because if they say, I'm not feeling well, I need to go to the doctor's, hey, do not accept it. For the key reason that once they are in your car and you have started the trip, you are now responsible for them. If something happens to them on the way to the hospital, you're legally liable. Not Uber, not Lyft, because you're an independent contractor, not an employee. If you're an employee, that might make Uber and Lyft partially responsible, but you're not. You did this on your own accord, and I don't care what the reasons are. It just puts you in a very, very, very bad place. Now, some would say, well, I'm already here, and the ambulance might get here sooner, or the ambulance might get here later, so isn't time of the essence? Yes, it is, but you know what? It was their responsibility to call the ambulance first. They decided they wanted to be cheap, and they wanted to put their lives in your hand. You don't have to do that. You do not owe them that. I have actually had to refuse people service because they said they're going to the hospital. I remember going on a Lyft one time. Guy came out, his arm was bleeding, and he said, you got to take me to the hospital, man. I said, nope, you need an ambulance. And now, was that a life-threatening situation? Probably not, because he was just bleeding. I'm sure they would have just stitched him up. But here's the thing. You don't know what's in his blood. That's a biohazard problem. What if the guy had AIDS or a contagious sickness, of some sort. Like, what if he had smallpox? Unlikely, but, what if he did? You don't know what's in people's bodies, so when they're, like, bleeding like that, don't let them in your car. If they're having heart problems or complaining about things like that, don't let them in your car. It sounds really, really cruel, but here's the thing. People will sue for any reason. Once they tell you they're going to the hospital, no. Don't let them in your car. And, by the way, passengers, here's the other thing. And this is what's actually prompted people to start doing research on how much people are taking Ubers to hospitals. Don't call an Uber pool of all things. Like, that is actually, like, the worst. Like, you are putting yourself in way more danger when you call an Uber pool to take you to the hospital for medical treatment you might need ASAP. I know it's cheap, but if there's other people in that car, they gotta get dropped off first. And even if they don't, guess what? You could be putting them at risk for getting sick. Don't do that. How selfish can you be that you're willing to put other people at risk and yourself at risk to save $2 at most in some cases? Just the whole... And even though Uber and Lyft speak out about this, I think they are confusing people on the matter, because Lyft has a service where you can schedule for a doctor's appointment, and Uber has just launched Uber Health. And these are supposed to be used for doctors so they can get patients to and from the hospital for appointments. And that's a great idea, by the way. Doctors will pay for it because they don't want you to miss the appointments and it's more money in their pocket. But Uber and Lyft need to seriously be educating people a lot more that these are not to be used for ambulance substitutes. An ambulance is a car for a very serious condition where you need help. So passengers, don't do this. You are putting your own life at risk if you take an Uber or Lyft to the hospital. And you could do serious permanent damage if the proper doctors are not there to take care of you. And Uber drivers, don't accept these. Now, some people might say, well, what if I do if they get in the car and they tell me afterwards? Well, I don't know. I would personally say it depends how far you are. If you're a mile away, just get them there as soon as possible. And then give them 1 star and let Uber know what happened. And I would even send a serious rider concern, because on Uber's website, under the help, there is an option to write a serious rider or serious driver concern. So as a driver, I would write a serious rider concern. I would explain midway through the trip, they told me they were going to the hospital because they were having chest pains, and I was not aware of this when they got in the vehicle, and have it be documented. And give them 1 star for that. You do not want to be matched up with these people again. So that could be what you would do. That would be the best thing to do. They let you know beforehand. Obviously, the answer is no. If it is a long trip and they are complaining of chest pains and stuff, I would actually, pull over and call 911 immediately, because that puts you back in control. Like they said they were suffering. I pulled over and I called 911. You have to do it. I don't care if they don't want to take the ambulance. I don't care if they... And again, I understand why some people would do this, because as much pain as you're in, you don't want to pay $1,000 for an ambulance sometimes. It's like you just don't have the money, and you're already going to the hospital where you're going to have a huge hospital bill. But this is just the reality of the world. The passenger might potentially need medical assistance from doctors that you cannot provide, and you become liable if something happens, which there's a pretty good chance it could happen if they are going to the hospital. So don't do it. Ubers and Lyfts are not meant to be ambulances. They can go to a doctor's appointment. They can come back from a doctor's appointment. That's it. please never use them for an ambulance. I'd love to know what you guys think about all this. Comment below. Flame responsibly. Have a good one.